What is up guys, it's Cal, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about legendaries that were once in WoW that are no longer, and legendaries that were planned to be in the game but never saw the light of day. I did make a video kind of similar to this before about legendaries currently in WoW and how to get them, so a link to that will be at the end of this video. But anyways, let's get started. First off, let's talk about the legendary that we've all heard about and was found in the vanilla game files but was never actually obtainable as a legendary. That's Ashbringer, Blade of the Scarlet High Lord. This was a blade that High Lord Mograine wielded, which was named after him due to his ability to smite undead, leaving nothing but ash. Mograine was later murdered by his son, Renault, with this very sword, but then was resurrected from the dead by Kel'Thuzad, to which he then wielded the corrupted Ashbringer, which old school players were able to get their hands on if they were very lucky, through the old 40-man Naxxramas, which is no longer in the game. The corrupted Ashbringer was obtained from the Four Horsemen fight in that Naxxramas, which was prior to Wrath of the Lich King's release, meaning you of course can't obtain this item anymore. Now back to the legendary Ashbringer. Since it wasn't actually in the game, no one really knew what you would have to go through to get such a legendary weapon. However, on February 24th, 2006, Ionix, who was once the community manager at Blizzard, stated on the official forums that it's true that currently the Ashbringer is not in the game, although one day in the future it will be, but not until after there's an awesome legendary item for casters. He was most likely referring to Atish, and lo and behold, the Ashbringer is in the game today, as the Ret Pally's artifact weapon. Also, the corrupted Ashbringer is an appearance that you can get for it as well. Now for the next legendary, Atish, Great Staff of the Guardian, which was obtainable in vanilla by mages, warlocks, priests, and druids. Each version of the staff also had a different color ribbon to note the class differences. Now the effects of the staff varied depending on your class. For druids, it increased your spell power by 160 and restored 11 mana per 5 seconds to party members within 30 yards. The mage variation increased the wielder's spell power by 150, increased their hit by 16, and increased the crit rating of all party members within 30 yards by 28. Then the priest variation increased the wielder's spell power by 160 and increased the spell power of all party members within 30 yards by 33. And then finally, the warlock variation increased the wielder's spell power by 150, increased their crit by 28, and increased the spell power of all party members within 30 yards by 33. And all of their use effects created a portal to Karazhan. Also, a flock of ravens would surround the caster's head, which was pretty neat. Now, how one would obtain this legendary staff is first, they'd have to gather 40 splinters of Atish from bosses in the original Naxxramas, which you then turned into frames of Atish. This frame of Atish had a quest for you to seek out Anachronos and Tanarus, who would then give you the quest Atish the Befouled Greatstaff. For this quest, you had to defeat Kel'Thuzad, who was the final boss in the original Naxx, and loot the staff head of Atish, which was a 100% drop chance if you were on the quest. And then they had to defeat Cthulhu, the final boss of AQ40, who dropped the base of Atish, which was a 100% drop chance if you were also on the quest. Acquiring both of these parts would allow you to summon Atish, who was a demon in Stratholme, and then you ultimately had to defeat him. Now Atish wielded Adonisis, Reaper of Souls, which is another legendary, and he dropped it through the course of the fight. This weapon can be picked up by the player and used to defeat the demon. This weapon increased the wielder's melee and range attack power by 600, and then defeating the demon finished up the Atish quest, allowing the caster to acquire the legendary. However, the legendary Adonisis, Reaper of Souls would disappear from the player after they have left Stratholme for 10 minutes. Next up, let's talk about the legendary Talisman of Binding Shard. This was a neck legendary that gives strength, agility, stamina, and some fire and nature resistance. Also, a lightning ball would float around the player using it. It dropped from Baron Geddon in the Molten Core raid, however this legendary was never supposed to make it to live and slipped under the developers' noses. The only individual to have ever looted this legendary is Noctin, from the guild Nerfed. Once looted, it quickly got the attention of the developers and they allowed him to keep it. It was then promptly removed from the loot table. This item left many to speculate why it was even created in the first place if it was never meant to be obtained. The reason isn't confirmed, but many believe it to originally be part of the Thunder Fury quest chain. This is because of High Lord Demetrian's flavor dialogue, which states, "What little remained of Thunderan's essence was stored within a talisman of elemental binding. Ragnaros then shattered the talisman in 2 flawless pieces, the pieces assigned to his lieutenants." Now for the legendary dagger known as the Shard of the Defiler. Now not much is known about this dagger when it was first data mined around patch 1.12. This dagger never made it to any sort of beta. It was most likely part of an early plan that was scrapped. Its source is unknown, but what is known is that it originally caused shadow damage and could proc an effect called Echo of Archimonde, which turned you into a demon, which increased your crit strike and attack speed. It seemed like this was geared more towards rogues and hunters, because everything is a hunter weapon. Next up, let's talk about the legendary mount known as the Black Qiraji Resonating Crystal. This was a mount that was obtained through a server-wide effort to open the gates of AQ back in vanilla. Timed Blackwing layer runs had to be completed, a crafted buoy that lured a deadly shark which was crafted with very expensive and rare materials had to be done, green dragons had to be killed for quest drops, and killing the insane Dr. Weevil had to take place. This exposed many players to the lore of Azeroth, and once all of this was completed, within the first 10 hours, players could ring the gong in front of AQ and obtain them out, along with the Scarab Lord title. However, in patch 3.0.2, some of the servers bugged when the realms restarted, and it allowed the gong to reappear and the AQ gates to be closed, which allowed many people to do the quest chain and get the black AQ mount and title a second time around. This black AQ mount is different from the other colors though, in that it can be used both outside the raid and inside. There is, however, a blue archaeology scarab mount called the Ultramarine Qiraji battle tank, which is learned from the Scepter of Aj, which is obtained through Tol'vir archaeology, which can be used outside of the raid. The black AQ scarab mount did have bugs surrounding it, no pun intended, in that it wasn't coded like other mounts. Prior to the colored AQ mounts being added, this was the only mount you could use in AQ. No other mount was allowed. So in patch 3.0.2 PTR, when they added the other colored mounts, well, this black AQ mount turned into a wasp in flying zones and allowed you to fly with it. This was fixed prior to the patch hitting live. Also, you could start summoning this mount while in combat as long as you left combat by the time the cast finished. This was also fixed prior to the patch. Next up, Peeps Whistle. This was a legendary mount that was data mined from the patch 2.3 PTR and summoned Peep the Phoenix. This mount was essentially the prototype for Ashes of Alar mount. It had the same model anyways. The flavor text for this mount is "Welcome to Alex Country, buckle up." The Alex they're referring to is Alex Afraziabi, who is the creative director for World of Warcraft. And now finally, Crafty's Pole. This is a legendary fishing pole that never made it to live and was found in the 4.1 game files. This fishing pole increased the wearer's fishing by 1000, and the flavor text reads, "Just holding this fishing pole makes you shiver with excitement. This is possibly the most amazing thing you've ever seen." This was due in part to many players finding fishing as the most boring profession to level, so if you get this fishing pole, you can fish anywhere without worrying about fishing level. So there you have it. Those were legendaries once obtainable that no longer are, or legendaries that were in the game files but never made it to live. Now I do have a couple honorable mentions here, mainly because I know people will point these items out thinking that they were legendaries, but really never were. We have the fabled artifact quality shirt item known as Martin Fury that could wipe out all enemies in a 30-yard radius. In April of 2009, this was given to a player named Leroy Speltz on the server Fek'Nalash. His account was hacked, and once he retrieved his account, a GM tried to sending him everything that he lost, and lo and behold, this item was in the mail of his level 13 Warlock. He then traded it to another guild member named Qiraji. Both of them believed that this item was sent to them intentionally because it came from Blizzard Entertainment, so with their better judgment, their guild, known as the Marvel Family, used it a total of 14 times, clearing raids like Ulduar, Eye of Eternity, and Obsidian Sanctum. The rapid progression grabbed the attention of GMs, considering this also granted them many World Force achievements, and everyone who was online in the guild at the time was suspended for 24 hours, regardless of whether they were in the raid or not. Qiraji's account was permanently banned, and the shirt was changed to poor quality. Then we also have Martin Thunder, which was a main hand artifact quality weapon that gave resistances to many of the spell schools, and had a use effect that killed enemies in a 30-yard radius. It did not have a weapon type, meaning any class could have wielded this, although unlike Martin Fury, it was never wrongfully given to a player, and was just a GM weapon used possibly for testing. You can still get the appearance of this weapon from slave pens. The boss, Manu, the Betrayer, drops a Spellfire longsword, which looks similar. In patch 3.3, Martin Thunder was changed to a poor quality weapon called Martin's Broken Staff. And that's really it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you think I did leave out any legendaries that were in the game files but never added, then you can let me know in the comments. I tried my best to find every single one. I contemplated adding the legendary cloak and legendary rings for Mists and Warlords, but whatever. They can still be obtained today if you've done those quest chains when they were current. If you didn't, well, you can't get them. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like on it. You can sub to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.